Whoa! This is the Illusion reporting from somewhere on Spaceship Earth. I'm here with my co-pilot, Owl. Say hi.
No.
You don't want to say hi? Hi. King John, first up at bat. So, it's been trippy, right? Somehow the satellites or whatever beams the signal has increased in our house, right? So all of a sudden, like we wouldn't get any like connectivity to like beyond emails and all that stuff. Thank you, King John. All of a sudden, like I can like get YouTube, right? So I kind of been going down the rabbit hole of, I don't really watch YouTube videos, so to speak. I just listen to a lot of like stuff, and so I went down the rabbit hole of this Crow 777 thing. For what it's worth, I don't care. It's this dude just questions everything in reality, and makes pretty interesting arguments why most of the stuff we see in reality isn't reality. I mean, everything is in question. And whatever, like, I'm into the question. I don't necessarily buy into a lot of what this dude's talking about, but he proposes very interesting questions. And at the same time, I've been like watching listening to a lot of Joe Rogan all of a sudden. Like, I come and go with Joe Rogan. I faded on Joe Rogan when he was in complete denial about upper atmosphere aerosol injection, and I just told you who I'm talking about, so go check him out yourself. And the Crow 777, and I was listening to this podcast with Guy Ritchie. By the way, Guy Ritchie made one of the best movies ever about the ego called Revolver. If you haven't seen Revolver, you should check it out. So Guy Ritchie was talking about some stuff about owning your thing, right? Like, he was talking about suits and wearing suits and owning it. I'm right there. I agree with you about Joe Rogan being a ceiling to keep us down. But Joe Rogan has interesting guests, and you got it. Like, the way I view it is this. I haven't listened to Joe Rogan in a year and a half. I stumbled onto the Joe Rogan Guy Ritchie because I liked Guy Ritchie, right? So then, I went and like, my big trip is when information shows up, don't walk past it and pretend it's not there, because it's like this. I'm in recovery, right? Like, I'm in a 12-step program, so I got to remember constantly why I am in recovery, dude, because I've forgotten. That was almost 8 years ago when life melted down. So every now and then I got to go review the information, and every time I review the information, I get more new information. So that's sort of my trip about Joe Rogan. I think he's part of the Matrix, and he's a controller of the information. But the only way they can control information is by giving you nuggets of truth, right? And so you have to be able to discern truth from misinformation, which is a very confusing thing. And I don't know, I'm not really about that, because like I said, the signal has got enhanced into our living room. So I kind of been going down the bunny hole of information lately. And I realized that I've kind of had a resurgence of like sort of expanded thought patterns. And I was tripping out like why I had these expanded thought patterns. And I realized that until I had a family, I used to just sit and go down bunny holes all night long on the computer, and trip out on different information and let that information lead me to different places. And all of a sudden, I've been living up on the mountain without a cell signal for like almost 4 years. And all of a sudden the signal's increased, good or bad. debatable. So I've been having this resurgence of mind-altering thoughts. And it's been kind of getting me super fired up. And I guess the one overwhelming thing that I've been getting from all this stuff is that the program of fear is what the main signal that's being broadcast to the average human being. And we're supposed to be afraid. This is like a lot of what the Crow 777's about, is regardless of what he's talking about, it's all about what they're doing is trying to keep us from metaphysically evolving, right? And the way that they can keep us from metaphysically evolving is fear. And you trip, like, what is fear? Like, what is fear? Fear's all sorts of stuff, man. You think about what they've been doing with all the shooters and the North Koreans and the economy. It's all fear. Everything coming out of your television's fear. And everything coming out of the newspaper and the print media is fear. And then you live your life too. There's all sorts of fear. Like the other week, Al stuck his hand on the fire shovel. That's fear. And, cars. And, I got the kid over in jiu-jitsu so she doesn't have to be afraid of other human beings. And so I was listening to this dude talking about the mind control of fear. And I was like, whoa, dude. Because I don't really truly live in fear of everyday life. But I think sometimes I live in a deeper fear that I'm not totally aware of. So I've been questioning a lot of ideas. And that's a lot of what all these kind of people I've been listening, these little nuggets I've been getting, have been asking me to question my ideas of reality. Because once you begin to question your ideas of reality, you begin to realize you don't know what's going on. And I mean the proverbial you. And I'm like, whoa, I have no idea what's going on. I'm like everybody else, so to speak. I went to school. What they told me is what I believe until I decide that I'm not going to believe what they told me, because I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to start asking questions. I'm going to ask questions about reality. And the minute you start asking questions about the reality you live in, that means that the reality you live in isn't rock solid. And that your reality is liquid, so to speak, or air, gaseous. And once you begin to ask questions about it, you realize that the fundamentals of your reality aren't as concrete as you thought. And that's a pretty scary thought. It's sort of the 9/11 principle, right? A 9/11 principle is basically just to scare the crap out of everybody and cause you to freeze and be afraid. We look at all the things that have come in place via that. I don't want to go down the bunny hole of that, but the people who are in denial about 9/11, I totally sympathize with them, because to admit that there's something weird about that means that the reality you live in is subject to scary ass people, man. And if the scary people are running the ship, what does that mean for you and your little family, right? And that's intense. And then I realize, again, as I'm always realizing, that they can't control you without fear. And for me, if I invoke the name of Jesus Christ, and that's my trip, doesn't have to be your trip, I don't have to live in fear anymore. It basically annihilates any bad presence. And I firmly believe that. Whether you do or don't, you invoke your own thing, man. For me, I invoke Jesus Christ. I'm safe. But I have to constantly remind myself that I don't have to live in fear, because I've made peace with myself, right? And it's been this kind of mind expanding idea, I'm ready to kind of venture out into some new mental territory. It is working. It's absolutely working. Well, because and I go, well, how's it working? Again, I wasn't. What's up, buddy? I wouldn't have been able to get sober without a spiritual foundation, right? So my beginnings, if I look at my journey over the last 8 years, I was kindergarten with it, and it's evolved and it's evolving. So I have a pretty solid spiritual sense of what my faith is involved with, and it's mine. It's my personal thing. Like, that's one of the things that I don't have to be afraid of, right? And I think like the evolution is I don't have to be so afraid of your perception of faith or lack of faith that it affects me. As long as my unit is secure with its understanding of what it needs to understand, I don't need to project onto you. I don't need to cause you to be afraid. Because that's what I also noticed and understand is the system, the people that are evil and broadcasting fear are ultimately afraid of people who aren't afraid. It's sort of this weird juxtaposition, right? Like, we think that the people that are running the show who are evil are super solid in that evilness, when ultimately they're super. Email me the link to your channel. I'll check it out. Ultimately, the people that are running the show that are evil are in fear. That's the only reason they need to control you, right? And so their big hoax is to get you afraid of them because they're afraid of you. It's the bluff psychology. You know, I've always been like one of those. I've gotten into some scraps out there. I roll around. I'm going to quote James Brown here. I don't know karate, but I know crazy, right? That's the whole thing. They're broadcasting fear because they're afraid of us. And I'm like, and I've always kind of understood this, but I had this crystallization real recently of like, whoa, man, far out. Like, whoa, sort of like a real Spicoli whoa about it, you know? Not one that I needed to be like, just like a aha. And it's like my little guy, right? If I look at it through the little guy, he's not afraid of anything except stuff he should be afraid of, like edges and stuff. He's got stuff he's afraid of. Cars. He's like healthily afraid of cars, which is great. And but I don't need in order to get him to do what I need him to do, I don't have to cause him to be in fear, because I'm not afraid of him. I love him. I'm in acceptance of him. Dude, this dude, it's sort of a bad analogy. But what I'm getting at, man, is I again have uncovered some nuggets to it all. Is the only way they can control us is through fear. But we have to know what we're truly afraid of. You see, like, what are you truly afraid of? Most people think they're afraid of, like, dying. That's not what you're truly afraid of. It's something deeper. And I would say the thing to explore is your relationship with your spiritual understanding, right? If you, that's what I found is that my fear was based, and it had to do with my spirituality and my connectivity to it. And you need to discover that for yourself. But what I also realized, that once I became super self-confirming in my fear, I didn't ever need to be afraid again. And like, look, I'm a human, so I have rational fears of stuff. Like, I don't drive on the other side of the road because for any other reason than I'm afraid of getting into a head-on collision. That's not the fear I'm talking about. But the system fear, the fear of masked gunmen and nuclear bombs. So I'm not afraid of it. And one of the coolest videos this Crow 777 talks about is the hoax of nuclear bombs and that it's all a psyop. And I go, dude, my entire life, right? I'm 47 years old. Mutually assured destruction's been the whole thing. Oh, they're always going to blow up the bombs. They got this thing going on with nuclear North Korea or Iran or whoever it is. They're going to blow up the world. They're going to blow up the world. No, they're not. See, they wouldn't do that because if they blew up the world, they wouldn't have anybody to control. They need us more than we need them, right? It's this weird thing when you realize that they're totally dependent upon us. They're afraid that we won't be dependent upon them. That's what's so trippy about it. That's why they want us on health care, right? They want you to be dependent upon them for health care. Oh, government, keep me alive. Once you're like, dude, I can take care of myself, dude. You know, you get what I'm saying? And I got to wrap this up because I got to go pick up the minigram from jiu-jitsu. Is the minute you realize that you are the president of your own reality, you will never need to be afraid again. Yeah, 2012 Space Traveler. You know, I'm stoked. You know, it's weird with the Crow 777. I had his podcast, one of them through this other pod. He was interviewed by someone. I hadn't listened to it. And I listened to it like 6 months ago. And then I listened to it again. And I was like, you know, I'm going to really go check this dude out because the renewed signal that I was getting in the house. And boom, I went down the bunny hole. But it's all about keeping us afraid. And it's been the cornerstone of, I think, this YouTube channel is the illusion. That's why I'm the illusion, is because it is all a hoax. The only truth is love. That's the only truth. Everything else is a manipulation. You know, and I mean you know deep down inside yourself that the only truth is love and everything else is a hoax. I gotta go. I gotta go get the minigram. I love you guys all. It's kind of been my thing on Wednesday because I dropped the minigram off and I found a place that's got a good signal where I can park with the owl and we can do this. So videos have been a little slow to upload just because it's been hard lately, but I have a bunch of them. Anyway, sending positive mental energy out to all of you, and I feel yours. Let's keep on keeping on. God bless you, and we're doing this together.